including expedited restocking and enhanced cooperation with Zimbabwe to combat animal diseases and livestock rustling. This milestone reinstatement underscores the strength of Botswana's agricultural community. Director and Principal Veterinarian at the Vet Pro Specialist, Dr Mbatshi Mazwiduma, joins us this evening as we reflect on the crippling effects of the outbreak and dissect key strategies and measures used to free the zone of the virus. Good evening and welcome to Botswana Tonight, Dr Mazwiduma.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, sir. We understand that Zone 6B has now been declared FMD free. And we understand that we got here because of the concerted effort from the farming community and government as well. Perhaps let's just go back to when the area was declared an FMD zone, or when it was actually detected, and some of the impact that had on the farming community and the community at large.
Yeah. It was first detected in 2002, and I think we need to emphasize that this was done, or this was because of the vigilance of the community, the farming community themselves, who then alerted the veterinary authorities of what was suspected foot and mouth. That then put in place already plans that are already in place, that where the resources were mobilized, confirmatory diagnosis was made, and then the plan was put in place to actually define the best strategy forward in collaboration with the farmers, with other key stakeholders.
Okay. Now, when we say it was due to the vigilance of the communities and the farmers, do we take it for granted that every farmer, once they see their animal or their animals, are able to say, well, the way it's behaving or the way it looks, this ought to be FMD?
Yes, because a lot of our farmers, if you compare Botswana as compared to other African countries, this country is one of the best veterinary services in the world in terms of livestock control and disease control. What has also happened is that the farming community are quite adept, and they've been sensitized to the signs of foot and mouth disease, and majority of farmers know what to look for. And also, more importantly, they know where to report it. And that is because of the extensive extension network that is in place, so that information can be transferred from farmer to the authorities quite rapidly, and also a response should also occur quite rapidly.
Okay. Majority of the farmers have been sensitized. Do we also take it for granted that farmers, we're talking about farmers across the country, or is it farmers in what we could say perhaps the red zones?
I would say farmers across the country, because foot and mouth disease is what you call a transboundary disease. Countries around us have been hit, and some of them are currently being hit on a regular basis. So it's important that the government has put in measures to make sure wherever every farmer is, they are quite knowledgeable, at least in knowing the basics on what to do if they suspect a disease such as foot and mouth disease.
Okay. Now, what exactly do they ought to do if they suspect?
The first thing is that they will contact their first veterinary authority who is closest to them, failing that the nearest police station or police law enforcement personnel, or the what you call the district commissioner or Malaudi, basically to inform one of the officials of government, and that then activates a chain reaction of events that is already in place. It's been modified and iterated through the years to perfect it, that allows us as a country to be able to effectively, one, investigate that, that suspicion case, two, confirm or deny if it is the case, and actually put in rapid containment measures as investigations are being conducted to find exactly where the outbreak is.
Okay. Now, in this instance, I do believe then that there was the reporting, there was that investigation, then the confirmation, and of course containment measures. When we started, we talked about the concerted effort between the community and the government that has allowed for Zone B to now be FMD free. What measures were put in place? What exactly did we do in collaboration to get to this point?
Yeah. This was basically, just to backtrack a bit, there's 3 measures for foot and mouth disease control. The first one is, of course, you immediately contain movement of animals into or out of that zone, with also a protection zone around it. The second thing that you then need to do is, after confirming that, is to then make a decision as to whether you're going to vaccinate, and that was employed in that case, to reduce or slow down the spread of disease. The third thing is, because in the case of Butali, it was contained in a relatively small area, we could therefore do what you call a strategic depopulation to be able to rapidly ensure that we stamp out the virus in its place before it has spread anywhere else. What is also done as a 4th measure is what you call traceback. You will notice that during the time of the outbreak, immediately there was surveillance across the country, and then as that surveillance picked up that the disease was contained in that area, it then narrowed it to that particular zone. However, that still didn't stop the authorities looking for viruses across the country. Remember, animals are moving in places, etc., where there is what you call trace forward and trace back, to try to nut it down to ensure that that disease is in the particular area that is suspected.
Okay. We talk about the heavy involvement of the community as we are doing the containment and we are doing the tracing. What exactly is the involvement of the community and the farmer in that whole exercise? The
most critical thing is that farmers have to avail themselves and the animals at the allocated time for testing and for vaccination or for depopulation if necessary. And in the case of Butali, one of the reasons why this was done quite rapidly is that the people, the farmers themselves, whose livelihood is entwined. Mind you, these people, some of them were letting go of their lifelong investments. Those people in that community were able to cooperate with the authorities, present their animals for vaccination, prevent the animals for testing, and also for tracing back. So that has allowed the government and the veterinary officials, the police, and all other stakeholders to be able to effectively work to get us to the green zone status that we are at. In fact, it is one of the fastest, if in the country, in the region, it's not in the world, where we've actually gone from what you call an area with FMD to green status in such a short period of time, which is testament to the fact that the plans work and that the communities are part and parcel of this whole process, despite that temporarily their livelihoods were being upturned. Some of them, as I said, they've lost lifelong investments, but also there is that element of trust, as you see that right now, after that that depopulation, government is now putting in place measures to restock that area. That can only happen when the two communities, that is government and also the farmers themselves, are in trust and in cooperation with a common end of getting rid of the disease.
Okay.
And of course, now that has resulted is that the people in that area, their livelihoods will get back to normality.
Okay. When we talk about normality, obviously, one would then want to know, now that we are back in a state of normality going forward, what is the plan to ensure that we remain as a green area as possible?
Yeah. I'll take you back recently in the area of Bubono. One of the reasons why, like I've said, foot and mouth disease is a transboundary disease. It knows no borders. The first and foremost thing is that at a local level, what is being done right now is that the farmers again be sensitized to make sure that the disease doesn't spill back into that area. Number 2 comes the international cooperation between governments. And that is actually being done between the governments of Botswana and Zimbabwe to ensure that we know where the disease come from. They also know what to need to do so that they also put in place containment strategies. The third thing is the Botswana Vaccine Institute is the one that manufactures the vaccine for control of this disease. South Africa is using that vaccine, Namibia is using that vaccine, Zimbabwe is using that vaccine, and so do other countries. So we have the local expertise locally to be able to also supply vaccine and other control measures beyond. What we've also done, because of this rapid return to freedom, it has also allowed other countries to look. You're looking at, we recently had the Minister of Agriculture from Uganda, who's coming to actually try to see how is it that we do this thing so well. And now, because remember, in Uganda, they are busy trying to control foot and mouth. Meantime, they have to have rebels and coming into play. So they've got a more complex structure. They had come to learn how is it and how we do it best.
Earlier on, you really touched on the depopulation. I'm just quite curious to find out how critical it is to ensure that as we try to get to a green status, that we actually do this depopulation.
Yeah. Depopulation is not the only strategy. Remember, depending on where the outbreak is, it is done on a case-by-case basis. One of the things is that the strategic depopulation, one of the cornerstones of it is that our vaccines were able to differentiate a vaccinated and an unvaccinated animal or an animal carrying disease. So with the strategic depopulation, it is used wherein we can it'll get you back to disease-free status quite quickly, but it's also used in those small areas where the impact economically, financially, and otherwise is not going to be so huge. The impact will be there, the pain will be there, but it is not such a huge burden. And you'll find that Botswana, for example, has led that strategy in what you call strategic depopulation with the subsequent foot and mouth disease outbreaks. You'll also note that because of the superior nature of the Botswana vaccine, foot and mouth, when the disease outbreak occurred, there was a temporary halt of movement across the country, but we were able to quickly return to trading with EU whilst we were fighting that outbreak, because our authorities outside, who are trading partners, do trust that we have got one of the best vaccines, the best control measures for FMD in the region, in the continent, and if not in the world.
Okay. Now, we are here talking about Zone B, but we cannot ignore that there's a situation along the Ramatlabama where there is an outbreak in some areas of the northwest. The government is putting up a cordon fence, 182 kilometer, if I'm not mistaken, or 72 kilometer cordon fence, if I'm not mistaken. And now there are issues of vandalism and the like. What is important that farmers and just the citizens as general ought to know and be aware of in terms of controlling the spread of foot and mouth disease and ensuring that some areas remain green areas?
Yeah. What is important is that this disease, although it is an animal disease, the human factor has got a huge influence, and you've touched on the issues of vandalism. Government has put in place not only that fence, which is going to be, it is basically, I believe, repaired and restored, but also the other stakeholders, your border patrol in the armies, in terms of the Botswana Defence Force, the police and other law enforcement agents are ensuring that despite those things happening, they are going to be minimized. It is always going to happen when you pick up fencing material. It is not the only part where it has happened. Vandalism has happened in other areas where government has put up fencing both locally and across international boundaries to try to contain a disease. So it is not something uncommon, but what is important is that it is only one of the measures. The farmers themselves in that area are also being resensitized to ensure that they are not participating in that vandalism, and ensuring that they also report it, and also ensure that those people who are participating in that vandalism are brought to book, because it is a criminal offense.
Okay. Besides it being a criminal offense, just the impact that if you talk about the human aspect, vandalism being one of them, and I'm sure even just the control of, allowing animals to roam, however, what is important for us as the community, as citizens, to take note of insofar as the human aspect is concerned, and the impact on the farmer's life, the impact on the community you just mentioned, the economy, you just mentioned the export to the EU?
Yeah. It is one of the things about the farmers and the farming community about one is that they guard their FMD-free status jealously. I would hasten to add that they are fully cooperating, but because they do know very well that if we do have an outbreak in that area, there is going to be a huge catastrophe. But also, more importantly, it is going to affect on their ability to be able to earn a living. For example, the price of beef to Botswana Meat Commission under export is 42 pula per kg. Locally, you are going to get probably 30 pula per kg or less. 80% of BMC income is coming from the EU. It is important as farmers that we make sure that our disease control measures, be it the fencing, be it surveillance, be it cooperation with the authorities, is always on point.
Okay. Now, speaking to other areas, what can they learn from the success in Zone B in terms of either fighting FMD? What can they learn in terms of the collaboration that you spoke of?
I think what they can learn is the systems that are in place currently for the control of FMD in Botswana are not static. They're always evolving. And every single time there's a commitment, not only from the farmers, but from government itself in availing the resources when needed and where needed. We've successfully, throughout the years, controlled this disease, amongst others. You will remember as far back as almost 30 years, the cattle lung disease, one of the few countries that are able to eradicate those diseases. So the resources and the commitment are always availed. But more importantly, I go back and saying that as a country, the farmers understand very clearly that this status of being FMD-free is something that they guard quite jealously, given that despite the fact that you go to Zimbabwe, there's hotspots, you go to South Africa, as you'd allude to right now. South Africa right now has been fighting this disease for more than 3 years. Rona in Botswana, we are done in 18 months. That should tell you something. Namibia, Libone, they have not done this as quickly and as well as we do. Zambia, it's another story. So when you look at it in that context, it's a status, Jaka, our diamonds and the blood diamonds, which we guarded jealously, Leone, our FMD-free status, amongst other diseases that can cross boundaries, we guard jealously, and government does quite an excellent job in responding in cooperation with the farmers.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbatshi Mazwiduma. He is from VetPro Specialist, being the Director and Principal Veterinarian there, speaking to us about efforts, concerted efforts between the government of Botswana and, of course, the farmers in Zamaya in ensuring that Zone B returns to being an FMD-free state, and, of course, speaking to other areas and what it is that we can do as citizens and farmers in general to ensure that we do what we can to make sure that our areas are FMD-free. Baemedi ba mafatshe ya Netherlands, Denmark le Korea ba tlhotse ba ipegile kwa ofising ya ga Tautona Masisi.